Have you ever shot some video in a low light setting, cranked up your ISO and ended up with grainy, noisy footage? As a media production educator, noisy footage is a common problem that I see my students struggle with. And today, I'm going to show you how to avoid that so that you can always get clean, sharp images. And stick around until the end of the video where I'll give you a practical tip that'll ensure that you get a noise-free image every time. ISO, which is sometimes called gain on some cameras as well, is a setting that controls how sensitive your camera's sensor is to light. A higher ISO like 1600 or 3200 or higher is useful in darker environments, but it introduces noise, those little grainy artifacts that you've probably seen in low light footage. I still remember a shoot where I had no lights available to me. I just had to use natural light. The sun started to set and I was forced to crank up my ISO to around 3200. And in those days, I was still in film school. I was shooting on my very own Canon 7D DSLR. The footage looked fine on that camera's tiny screen, but when I got into post-production, the noise was everywhere and I had to spend hours trying to clean it up. And ever since then, I've been super cautious about pushing the ISO too far. Ensuring that I have access to lighting has been a non-negotiable thing for me from that day on. And here's a practical tip. Most cameras have something called a base ISO, which is the ISO setting where your camera performs best and where it produces the least amount of noise. This setting varies from camera to camera, but you should be able to easily find out your camera's base ISO by doing a quick Google search online. My fourth year students shoot on Canon C70s, and the base ISO of that camera is ISO 800. Whenever possible, I tell them to try and stick to that base ISO and to use more lighting to obtain the correct exposure instead of just cranking up the ISO setting. So now that you understand ISO, I'd encourage you to join me in this next video where I unpack the third pillar of exposure, which is aperture. It's all about how to control the light entering your lens and your shot's depth of field. I'll see you there.